Hello and welcome back to No Bullshit. Today we turn to talking about the most popular show in the world right now, the now infamous animal-centered documentary from Netflix called Tiger King. This show features a slew of characters all involved with raising and maintaining big cats in one way or another. We're talking lions, tigers, panthers, all kinds of stuff. And in the documentary, 3 major zoos and animal sanctuaries are featured within it. But the real attraction to the show is the outrageous people running the places. Most notably is the main character, the Tiger King himself, also known as Joe Exotic. And well, if you think I'm exaggerating things here, perhaps you haven't seen or heard much about the show yet. So let me give you an example of how crazy things get on there by telling you just a little bit about the Tiger King himself. Joe Exotic is a 57-year-old former zoo operator and now a convicted and incarcerated felon. That's right, Joe's in jail, and we'll talk about why in a bit, but basically what led him to where he is now was his flamboyant and over-the-top personality, his feud with another prominent big cat person named Carol Baskins, and also his tendency to associate with other shady criminals and other conman type characters. Before Joe's downfall though, he was a prominent zoo operator who sports a bleached blonde mullet, holstered weapons, a limp, a leg brace, and also he's a polygamist married to 2 younger husbands at one point. And not to spoil too much of the show, but by the end of it, Joe Exotic ends up in jail, of course, for supposedly hiring someone to kill his rival Carol Baskins. And this detail became particularly relevant this week since, at a recent press conference with President Trump, one reporter asked the Donald if he would consider pardoning and getting Joe Exotic released from prison. And you'll never believe the president's response to that either. We're going to go over that today and more. The whole story from top to bottom, beginning to end. But first, let's take a quick 30 seconds to hear from our new sponsor, preparewithnobs.com. My Patriot Supply has partnered up with us at preparewithnobs.com to provide you guys with some really great, delicious, and professionally packed and storable foods. Yes, these dry foods will keep for years, so rest comfortably knowing that even if your house runs out or if things get worse and grocery stores and Costco run out of food too, but fortunately for you and us, we chose to stock up at preparewithnobs.com, so we'll have plenty of food in our cupboard. Go to preparewithnobs.com and you won't be disappointed. That's preparewithnobs.com. Thanks for your time, and now back to the show. Great, now let's get back to the Joe Exotic Trump story. This article from EW has more details. It's called "Trump Asked If He'd Pardon Joe Exotic During Press Briefing. The President Promises He'll Take a Look at the Tiger King Star's Case." Well, that's refreshing to hear. I'm not sure if it will help or if Joe necessarily is completely innocent, although I do suspect he was kind of set up with that murder for hire charge. Regardless, it is nice to hear Trump will look into it, even if that does sound a little absurd. Sure, the people in that Tiger King documentary, they are a bit strange, and none of them are angels or completely innocent by any means, but if Joe was in fact entrapped or coerced into getting himself arrested for this terrible charge, then surely we should revisit that and see if we can get it right the second time around. Regardless, let's read on more into this story first and see where else this goes. A reporter asked President Trump if he'd consider pardoning imprisoned Tiger King star Joe Exotic. At a press conference about the pandemic Wednesday, the president was giving one of his daily press briefings about the U.S. response at the White House when New York Post reporter Stephen Nelson asked Trump about the hit Netflix series. One of the biggest ratings hits aside from these briefings has been a show on Netflix called Tiger King. Nelson asked, "The man who starred in this is a former zoo owner serving a 22-year prison sentence. He's asking for a pardon, saying he was unfairly convicted. Your son yesterday jokingly said that he was going to advocate for it, and I was wondering if you'd seen the show and had any thoughts on pardoning him." "Which son?" Trump replied. "Must be Don." "It was," the reporter replied. "I had a feeling it was Don," the president said. "Is that what he said? I know nothing about it. He had 22 years for what? What did he do?" Sounds like the president is not as familiar with the Netflix shows as this reporter might think he is. Makes sense though, since Trump has a million other things to worry about. And if we were to guess what Trump might watch with his very limited free time, I highly doubt a documentary like Tiger King would be at the top of his list, even though it is enthralling. Regardless, it is an interesting question and something refreshing and new and different, which is worth considering, especially in this troubling and trying of times. The Tiger King is the most popular meme going around right now, and it's based on a true story surrounding an American figure who very well might have been framed and pushed into doing this so they could arrest him and get him out of the way. My basic understanding of the situation is Joe Exotic brought in a new, very shady investor named Jeff, and Jeff quickly tried to take over Joe's zoo. After struggling to squeeze Joe out for a while, Jeff seems to have come up with a plan to snitch on Joe in collaboration with his friend who helped him set Joe up and the federal government, who was giving them amnesty. Yes, Jeff made it look like Joe hired his friend as a hitman to take out Carol Baskins. Now, there's a lot of speculation and hearsay, and this part of the story is based on some assumptions, but if you take it with a grain of salt, this seems to be what the pro-Joe people believe, and it wouldn't surprise me if this was the truth too. And if there's a chance Joe is innocent, then Trump looking into it would be a great move. Surely it's not a high priority, especially with all these other problems in the world today, but Trump has a big team and plenty of staffers and resources, so a small fraction of that could and should be allocated into at least checking this out. They could easily put 1 or 2 people on it. At this point, the reporter further explains the plot of Tiger King to the President of the United States. "I'll take a look," Trump said. "You can watch the surreal exchange here below." Next, we see a CBS tweet with a video of this now famous exchange. So let's look at the footage ourselves now then and see how it played out in real time.
A show on Netflix called Tiger King.
Yeah.
And the man who's the star of this is a former zoo owner who's serving a 22-year prison sentence. He's asking you for a pardon, saying he was unfairly convicted. Your son yesterday jokingly said that he was going to advocate for it, and I was wondering if you've seen the show and if you have any thoughts on pardoning Joe Exotic.
Which son? It must be Don.
It was.
I had a feeling it was Don.
Such a Don move, am I right? But really, let's first go on record saying this question is a bit out of place. We're currently dealing with a disaster the likes of which we've never seen. Yet for some reason, this young and dumb reporter is talking about Tiger King. But at the same time, to also be fair to the other side, I do think there is some merit to talking about this too. First of all, we can all use a distraction right now. And surely 99% of the questions at these recent press briefings, they have all been dull and stuffy and health scare related inquiries. So with that said, having one more lighthearted ask get through to the president really isn't the end of the world. It could even lighten the mood and give the people there and those watching at home some temporary relief. Next, it's worth pointing out the cultural relevance here too. Tiger King is a wildly popular meme and show that's based on true stories and real American people. And considering all the angles there, most noteworthy the pro-animal supporting of big cats and wildlife, well, those are certainly noteworthy and worthwhile endeavors. In addition, if Joe Exotic is indeed innocent, as many suspect, then the president or anyone working for him looking into it and possibly freeing an innocent man, well, that's the right thing to do. In addition, if you knew what I know about Joe, well, Mr. Exotic embodies a lot of the greatest American ideals out there. He's a First and Second Amendment supporting American patriot, and also a self-made millionaire and capitalist and businessman who also helps, cares for, and advocates for big cats, some of which are endangered and at risk of going extinct. Now, with all that said, Joe is of course also not perfect, and he has plenty of flaws and skeletons in his closet too, but that doesn't necessarily mean he belongs in jail. Perhaps if the worst allegations against him are in fact true, but if they aren't, then there may be cause for a pardon here. It's certainly worth looking into, as the president said, at the very least.
He has 22 years for what? What did he do?
He allegedly hired someone to murder an animal rights activist, but he said that he didn't do that, and he was.
You think he didn't do it? Are you on his side?
Well, I'm a reporter.
Are you recommending a pardon?
No, I'm not advocating anything.
As a reporter, you're not allowed to do that. You'd be criticized by these. Would you recommend a pardon?
I'm not weighing in on Tiger King.
I don't think you would. I don't think you would. Go ahead. You have a question? I'll take a look.
Well, that's pretty rich right there. First of all, the president looks great here. He's 4 years in the middle of a crisis, and he's still healthy, happy, strong, and even he's still got his sense of humor too. And as stated earlier, sure, this health issue is serious and dramatic, and we should be taking it seriously, but also, that doesn't mean there is zero time to smile anymore. And briefly talking about something else like Tiger King, that can happen too. I like the way Trump handled this actually. It makes him look real, humble, and in touch. And also like he might care here. Him saying he'll look into it might just be talk too, but I do believe if something was there and needed to be done with this story, the president would be the one to do it. Really though, I do think this reporter was trying to lock him in on a bad stance. He hoped the president would take a side on the Tiger King story so people could hold it against him one way or the other in the future. Instead though, Trump 4D chessed the guy by flipping the question back on him and another random random reporter. And when the president asked if they would pardon Joe Exotic, the response from the reporters was priceless and says a lot too. The first guy even said something like, "I'm a journalist and I shouldn't be taking sides." We all know that hasn't been true for decades, even though it should be, but we all know they're partisan hacks now. Sure, reporters are supposed to be unbiased fact checkers, but really these days, they're all liberal influenced propaganda pushers and anti-Trump losers who happily take sides on everything, usually against conservatives and the president. So when these reporters refuse to answer, acting like it's because they're trying to be unbiased, well, that's a load of BS. And really, it just shows that Trump was one step ahead and he wasn't going to get even close to falling into their trap. As much as we're all obsessed with Tiger King and can appreciate this excuse to put Trump and Tiger King into a headline, it should go without saying that there have to be far more pressing questions to ask the president during the crisis. Like say if the president will push the FDA to approve home test kits, which the agency has been dragging its feet on greenlighting, so more Americans can get confirmation that they have the virus without having to come in direct contact with healthcare workers, or ask Trump about antibody test kits, whether he will push to roll those out nationwide so we can find out who's already been exposed and therefore presumably immune so people can get back to work. Or maybe ask Trump about reports from Tuesday alleging the president was warned in January that the US could suffer 500,000 deaths if action was not taken. You know, crazy stuff like that. Okay, wow. After happily diving into this story and gladly taking advantage of a clickbait style headline and title, now EW and their writer appear to be trying to take the high road while also going after the president in some pretty silly ways. First of all, you can't act like you're better than this title and the headline and then go and use it and abuse it yourself, pretending it's okay because you called yourself out in the last paragraph, but I'm not buying that. That's not going to work on me, and I believe most readers will see through this too. In addition, the blame for this unimportant question doesn't get to be put on Trump. He's not the one asking questions, so really, EW should be chastising the reporters there. But obviously, they are trying their bestest to make this Trump's fault, even going so far as to imply Trump was not heeding warnings about this issue in January, even though he actually was, and we have proof of it. Trump spoke about this outbreak at his State of the Union speech, and before that, he shut down travel to and from infected areas in the Far East, and he also started a task force who immediately convened and started handling this problem very effectively as well. So really, and I know I might sound like a conservative lapdog here, but this is all true. All of the stuff they're trying to pin on Trump here isn't on him at all. Trump didn't ask the questions, and he's not the reason this crisis is happening. And he didn't make us run out of test kits either. In addition, Trump and the cons responded early in January, but liberals and Democrats want to pretend he was late now and they were early because they're rewriting history, even though at the same time, in January, all the left really cared about was overthrowing the president illegally through the inappropriate use of impeachment, of course. And now they're trying to Monday morning quarterback this whole thing, even though they've been wrong about it every beat and every step of the way. What a joke. Now, what do you guys think? Was this Tiger King question kind of out of place? Is it the president's fault when random reporters ask him silly things? And do you think Joe Exotic is in fact innocent? And should the president be considering this pardon seriously? Comment your thoughts on everything below, and thanks for watching No Bullshit. Hit that like button if you like big cats and Joe Exotic like me, and we'll see y'all next time.